I'm going to demonstrate building a 3D data file to extract a die line of a folding carton structure. It's just a workflow process so we can test out our designs and make a handmade sample. I'm working on a PC, so the interface might be a little bit different. So this is the original sketch of the idea that I'm going to build. So this was the perspective of it, and then I had an estimation sketch here of what I think the die line is going to look like and what the internal components are. So this was the concept that I'm starting with, and it's sort of the plan that I'm going to go after in the 3D file. That kind of gives me my width and my height. And that was actually given to me from the client because they had a certain amount of shelf space and clearance and height that they wanted to work with. And it was sort of a standard in the category. So that's where this back panel comes from. I believe it was like 3 3/8 by 4.5 high or something like that. So I created that panel in the back here. So what I need to do is build my object first. I have this little nasal inhaler bottle that's going to fit inside there. So I know all of our projects are going to be very different. For my project, I have this definitive piece of geometry, this bottle that I'm going to hold. Now, some of you might have objects that are not so specifically detailed objects, like you might have, let's say, a bunch of tea bags or some loose material or something like that. So you're going to have to estimate, hold the tea bags in your hand and measure, width and height and the orientation and get a feeling for your volume and then start building your panels around that. And make a guess. And that's the point of this whole thing. So we'll print out the die line and you cut it out quickly and you test it and see how things fit and see how the flaps work. And then it's a bit of an iterative process back and forth to get this to happen. So for me, I do this back panel first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a decal. So if I select this and I go under here, under this little, so here's our layers. And then under here, we have this little colorful little donut thing. And this green square, the thing is called decal. So if I select decals, and then I come under here to this plus sign, it goes to this file that I have set up. Now I have all the JPEGs set up for all the graphics for this. So it really depends on your workflow. I have all this art already set up, and we'll use that in the next phase when we get involved with doing the full 3D rendering. But some of my panels on here and my bottle, I need to get that 3D data into this file. So I'm going to start off, I set this one up here where I have a picture of the bottle on this yellow background. And that is set up exactly to the width and the height of that back panel because I want to build the bottle. So I'm going to select that. And it's going to say planar, which means it's just going to go onto a flat placement on there and then towards the front. So I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to go towards front here at the bottom, front view. So let's just pull this in. So right here, and I am now going to place that piece of art. So I'm going to start up here in the corner. I'm just going to click and bring this down to the bottom here. Now I should have this on rendered. These decals only show up in rendered view. So we have to come back up here under view and go to rendered. Okay, so there I placed that art on there. I started at the top corner and snapped down to the bottom. So now I have that perfectly placed and I know that is the exact height of the actual bottle because I set it up on that yellow field and I placed it on here. So now this is ready to be traced. So what we can do is now we can see it. I have this subtle line right here. All I did was I just took my line tool and I just traced right around here continuously all the way down. So we have to make a judgment call on some of these details. Right now, I don't need every little radius and every little detail on here. I just want to block out the geometry to make sure that it's going to fit inside of this structure. And the way my design works, all I'm really going to have are two round circles that are going to accommodate the top tapered area here and the bottom part of the bottle area here down the bottom. So it sits in those two places. So that's all I really need to know. So I'm not going to detail this any further with all these little nuances and radiuses. But eventually when I go to my 3D rendering, I will. I'll finish this up as a solid, add some surface treatment, put a label on it, and that'll work for my final 3D rendering. But right now, we're just trying to determine whether the structure is going to work. So this will be sufficient for this at this point. So I'm just going to go into perspective. Let's go back. So we're in shaded. So I'm just going to take this and revolve this. I have a center line that I drew right to the middle here because I'm not on my center axis, which I could have been, but I just drew a center line right here. And that's the information I'm going to need to do a revolve. So I'm just going to go into my, this in my surface tools. Down here at the bottom, I have the revolve tool. So I'm just going to select that. You can do it with the commands. Either way is fine, but I'm just, some of these tools I remembered, so I'm just going to go right to the revolve tool. And what I need to do is select this path that I had just created. I'm going to select the path, enter. Now I need to select this center point at 2 places. So I'm going to select here at the bottom, and I'm going to come up and select at the top. And it's asking me to make this revolve. So I'm going to click here, and I'm rotating this around all the way to the other side. And I'm going to click and then enter. So now I have a simple revolve of my geometry. Again, I don't have all the details and the radiuses, but this is all I really need to know at this point. I don't even need to cap the top and the bottom. So this is just going to be a surface body and not a solid body at this point. And that'll be all I need to trim some of these holes into these parts. So now I need to take this and let's do the top. So I'm going to go back into this little pie shape here, which is I have all these layers set up already so I can move this along. So I made all these panels and put them on separate layers. So now we are going to do the top panel, which is going to give me the depth of my box. And then I need to center my bottle onto that. So this back panel I had with the bottle on it, I don't need that anymore. So let me remove, which is going to remove my entire bottle because I have the bottle on another layer. And you can see it's moved back. So all I did was, let's bring in my back. So I have the back panel that had the bottle label on it. I just put that into position, and then I drew this top part. So these rectangular shapes are very easy to draw in the surface tools. And we have these different rectangular tools that we can work with. And I drew this from the top view. We can also draw this in this perspective. So if you notice, I have this grid here. It's on this upright position. If I were to draw a rectangle now, it would draw it on that grid. So what we need to do is be able to shift that grid, and we can do that right here under View. And if we go to Set C-Planes, and we come over here, and we can, I use these commands down here. So if I look at World Top, I have now shifted the grid to the bottom. So that allows me to make a rectangular shape that's going to work for me for my bottle. So let's take a look at this from the top view. And this is the depth that I had selected. So I just moved my bottle. I selected the bottle because it was in the front here. I revolved it on this front plane. And I just snapped to its center because I had all my snaps on. And I had midpoint on. And I did it with orthographic. And I snapped it straight back and put my bottle exactly in the center of that panel. So now I have the top and I have the back and I have my bottle into position. And we're starting to move along. So that's the kind of the parameters of my box. So what I needed to do was continue making the rest of these panels. So I think the next one I did was probably the bottom. So I drew the bottom panel, which is basically the same as the top. So I just moved a copy, or I could just build another one. And then we have the two sides. Again, we can draw that from right view or left view, or we can change our C-plane and then draw that right in perspective. Now, the reason they're different colors is because I have them on different layers, so I know exactly where they are. So I'm setting this up on different layers because eventually we can continue mapping in decals in Rhino to make our 3D rendering. We can also save out the file and open it up in Keyshot, and we can continue using the decal process in Keyshot, which will probably ultimately give us a better 3D rendering and gives us more flexibility. So I'm trying to show both paths of work here. So we can do it both ways. By setting these up, I can also easily open this up in Keyshot. So this is the outside parameters of my box. Now my front is made up of several different panels, and there's some internal structures that we're going to build also. So I call the internal structures, I call them dividers. So that's these two additional panels, and all they are I just moved copies of the top and the front, just moved them into position. And this was a little bit of a judgment call about where I wanted to do that. So I just moved that and sort of guessed where I wanted that to be in position. So the top one is to support that top piece there, and then the one that the body of the bottle sits in the bottle. So over here on the side, I brought the bottle over so we can take a look at how to punch these holes inside of these panels. So right here, yeah, I think I'm still in Surface Tools. This second tool right here, they call it split surface. So if we select that and we look at our commands, it's like select object to split. So I'm going to select this panel and I believe enter. And then I'm going to select the bottle and enter again. So what it has done, I'm just gonna move the bottle over. It has punched that little hole that we need in this in that panel. This up. So the hole is still in there, so I can just select that part that I don't want and delete that. So now we have punched that hole in there exactly where we need it. Now I pulled this off to the side just so I could show you how that was done. I would actually do that right in place, and that's what I've done here. So this is all set up. So I'm just gonna undo this. So I did that both on these panels. So let's go into wireframe. Where am I? View. So now if I select this panel, I have the hole in there. And if I select this panel, oh, not that one, this one, I have the hole in the bottom. So those panels are now ready to go. So what I need now are these two front panels. So these just appeared. So it's the same thing. All I have to do is change my grid, and I just drew these geometry. I snapped these two corners and created these two front panels. So now I have all the internal structures that are ready to go here. So let's take away panel, and I just moved a copy of it, and I brought it over here. And I'm going to decal the art on the front of that, just like I did the decal for the bottle. So I think I might have that in position. Let's see if I have it in there. Okay, so I don't have it on that panel yet. So let's just go to front view. So ultimately, I want to create this part here with the Alaric logo. And I just took that panel and I reversed it because I wanted to see how it would work putting art on both sides. So I'll show you how that works. So here is that back panel, which is equivalent to the front panel. So what I need to do is put that piece of art on there. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to select this and go over to this area here and go under decal, select on decal, this green square, add, and I need this front piece of art right here. And again, I'm going to do it planar and front facing, say OK. And I'm going to select this top corner. And this has already been positioned. So here comes the piece of art, and I'm just going to position it and snap down here. So now I have that piece of art on that flat panel. So what I need to do is trim this shape. So I want just this front piece here. So I've created this spline curve here. It's this subtle little line, and I used the, where are my spline curves? Curve tool. So they're in this area here. There's several different kinds of spline tools. You have to experiment with them a little bit. Uh, they give you control points, and once you build that, you can turn on your control points and you can move those around. So I manipulated these lines at the top. There's one right here, and then there's one right at the bottom. I'm going to trim that away. So we can use this trim tool again, this split tool. So by selecting this panel here, select this panel, uh, enter, and then I'm going to select my curve and enter. And it has now trimmed that away. So I think I can select this part that I don't want, and I'm going to delete that. So now I have trimmed that part away based on this piece of art. So again, if you have created your art and you did the art first, because you knew it was going to inform some of your panels, you can bring that in. You don't have to create all your art. You just need to create the art that's going to inform some of these cut panels. So it depends on your workflow and how it's going to work. And I just did the same thing down here at the bottom to trim that. So I'm just going to back up so I can keep this here for our tutorial in class. So that's how this piece of art was created. So you can see I have the see here, I have the art on both sides of that panel, and that works. So I can map decals on both sides. So that's actually quite convenient, like that. Okay, so that's that part. So now we have to, I'm going to go back to my layers. And then we have the right front. Same thing. This one just happens to be a 180-degree circle. So I did the same thing. I took this panel, brought it over here, decal the art, and then trim that. So these are the two front panels that I'm going to need to test out the geometry. So I know we have the art on here. The art isn't necessary. It's only to inform these cuts so I can test out this die line. So I think I have all the parts built now. So all I need to do is take all of these. I selected all of them, and I just moved them to another layer and then laid them out. So I'm going to deselect all these parts, but I want to keep them on separate layers because we're going to use them layers or later. So right now it's just to shade. All right, so here's all the panels that I have created. We just need to add some of the other details. Right now, it doesn't matter too much whether it's a surface or just line work, because all of this will come out as line work when I save this out to test our die line. So I added the glue flaps. I have this little tapered area here, and that's just sort of an estimation about how much area I need for the glue flap. I have the glue flap at the bottom, and then I created these little gusset corners that fold up. So I just did one corner and then just mirrored it around and put those into position. And then my tuck tab is over here. And then I created that little cut area here and just added that. So this isn't fully detailed and for execution. This is just to test this die line. So what I want to do is export this. So one easy way to do that here is just to select all of this. And then if we go under File, we can export selected. And that brings me, I have already exported it, so I'll just do it again. I have, it wants me to name the file first before I can do some the proportions on it. So I'm going to say Save yes. And it says already exists. Yes. So here comes this palette here where I can change the size. So I've set this up. You can do a custom size here. So I did 14 by 14 inches because I know that'll fit. Because I definitely want this full size. It's very important that we print this out, obviously full size, because I want to cut this and make sure my bottle's going to fit and everything's going to work. So the 14, you have to figure out what size will work. You can experiment if you look at full size. Go to extends, which means it fills it up. And right now it's under scale to fit. We don't want scale to fit. We want to go 1 to 1. This is very important. So I have 1 to 1, full window extends, and it's at 14 by 14 inches because I checked this. I know that's going to fit. Now, if my die line didn't quite fit, you'd have to make this a little bit bigger. So this paper size is sort of insignificant. We just need to know what that is. When we bring this into Illustrator and print this out, we need to know that it's full size. So now I have this on here. It has all the lines. It has all the ISO lines and the outside lines. We can clean that up later. And I'm saving this out as a PDF, export PDF. So all we have to say is OK. So now that will be in my file as a PDF. The next thing to do would be to bring that into Illustrator and print that out full size. You can tile it, tape some pieces of paper together, or you can bring it over to the print lab and get full size print. That's what you would take, and you would spray mount that with the repositional spray mount, spray that to the SPS board, and just cut that out like we did in class, and test to see how it works. If it works, that's great, perfect. If not, then you might want to go back. You can go back to your Illustrator file, move some things around, make some modifications, or come back to your 3D data file to make some modifications. So that's it. That's creating the 3D file, your product, and exporting a die line to test.